Hi, it's Catie Harris. This is an episode of the NursePreneurs Podcast. And today we have none other but James Bond on with us from The Brain Glue. James, thanks so much for being here with us today.
Oh, Catie, thank you for having me. I love your podcast. So
Thanks. All right. So I just have to ask for all the listeners out there. So James Bond, that's your real name, right? But you're not the real James Bond that this is the Brain Glue James Bond that we're talking to.
actually, my name was originally Fred Flintstone, but that didn't work. No, just kidding. I think my
You're
parents had a
competing
sense
pretty
of
hard with these names, you know?
Yeah. Well, actually, so I was thinking about this. I was born after the books, but before the movies. And I think my parents had a sense of humor, by the way, but that's a whole other story. But I learned something about my name that made me focus on brain glue. And that is my name is Brain Glue. Like I'll meet total strangers and they'll say, "Hey, what's your name?" I'll say James, and here's my wife, Pam. By the way, my name's James Bond. Ha, is it really? Yeah, James Bond. 10 years later, they'll meet me and they still remember my name.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It sticks to the brain like glue. I don't mean it to be that way. I was born by it. What can I say? But it made me realize there are certain things that stick to the brain like glue. And when we can understand that, we have a better chance of making a fortune, actually making a lot more money.
Well,
And being successful. Or being more successful.
Absolutely. So I'm really excited to dive into this. So why don't you give us a little bit of background about you and how you got started in this, and we'll continue that story about your name and how that really led to what you're doing now.
Okay. I live in Southern California. I've lived here for about 38 years. Our middle daughter, we gave her the initials LA, Lauren Asia. So we'd remember, how old is Lauren? Okay, because we moved here as soon as she was born. I ran an advertising agency in Montreal and worked my way up, and finally won major clients like Kraft Foods, Timex watches, Seagram's, their world headquarters is there and all that. And I had the opportunity to win the anti-drug campaign in America, and I lost, and I deserved to lose. I came up with powerful, logical reasons, excuse me, why you should not do drugs. And I lost to this guy that had an ad with an egg, a guy holding an egg saying, "This is your brain, cracking the shell, dropping the egg into a sizzling frying pan. This is your brain on drugs." Any questions? So we all remember
the
that.
most powerful ad like I ever, even to this day. I mean, we still bring it up.
It was profound, and it's powerful. And I realized two things. One is it was infinitely more powerful than my logical reasons why you should not do drugs. And second is it was emotional selling. I didn't know. I know logic. Sorry, I don't know. Sorry about that, everybody. I'm thinking of this, and it's making me cough. No, but I realized it's emotional selling. I have no idea how to do emotional selling, and it scared me. And I did research, and I realized that there's no research that actually shows you how to do emotional selling. So I put a box next to my computer, and I called it the passion box. And I took your brain on drugs, so I'd remember that ad, and I put it in the passion box. And I said, every time I see an ad or hear something that's emotional, not logical, but emotional selling, including phrases that people would say, I'm going to write it down and I'm going to put it in the box in the hopes that eventually there'll be so many examples that I'll be able to start to understand how to create emotional selling. Well, about 10 years later, we moved to Southern California and I met John Gray. And John Gray wrote this incredible book called Men, Women, and Relationships. And he was frustrated because people would read the book and they would say, John, this is the most incredible relationship book I've ever read. It's fantastic. It was changing their lives. And yet almost nobody was buying the book. And so one day he got this crazy idea. What if I change the title to Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus? And then just put some references to it throughout the book, but basically keep the same book. Sales skyrocketed. He was telling me, I work with this guy, Steve Harrison, who helped him with marketing. And he was telling me that sales went from 20,000 copies to 50 million copies, not 50,000, 50 million copies. I remember I was in a bookstore. I was looking at book. Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Book. What? Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus? I picked it up. I started looking at it and I said, oh, I got to get this. And so I was just profound. It was profound to me that by changing the title, he had the same book basically, but changing the title helped it explode. And it made me realize that, you know, if we have the right title for a product or for a book or for whatever else that we're promoting, it makes it much easier to make a lot of money. And so I went home, I was going to put it in my passion box, and I decided, wait a second, this is a metaphor. Men aren't really from a different planet, although a lot of women think we are. We act that way sometimes. Yeah, we're a little crazy, but we're not. But it's a metaphor. You know, he's basically saying, you know, men and women sometimes are so different. It's almost like we're from different planets. Okay, it's a metaphor. And I went, is metaphors the secret to emotional selling? I mean, the guy with the egg, holding the egg and then cracking the shell into, dropping the egg into a sizzling frying pan, that's also a metaphor. They're probably sitting around a table saying, okay, so when you take drugs, what happens? Well, it fries your brain. Oh, okay. What else gets fried? Eggs. Let's have an egg and pretend it's a brain and blah, blah, blah. And I went like, oh, wow, I think I figured out emotional selling. Well, I took the passion box and I dumped it on my bed, and I discovered that metaphors is one of 14 brain triggers at the heart of emotional selling. I started applying it, and it made more money than I ever thought. A lot of people don't realize this. You know, there are more than 22 million Americans who make over $1 million a year. It's the highest number of millionaires ever in our history. And doesn't it drive us nuts that all these people are making more money than us? Well, this turns out to be one of the things. Let me give you an example, okay? So there's a mom and son in Utah who love Shark Tank. I love Shark Tank. There are a lot of people who love Shark Tank. And they're watching Shark Tank, and then she says to him, you know, wouldn't it be great if we can invent a product and, you know, make some money and then get on Shark Tank, and then we'll become rich, you know, because people who get on Shark Tank and become, you know, invested with them become really rich. And so they're thinking, okay, so it took about a month for them to come up with an idea. And she had, you know, she had trouble going to the bathroom. And so the doctor said to her, you know, when you're on the toilet, if you could raise your feet 6 to 8 inches off the ground, then it's easier. It changes the shape of your body. And it's easier to go to the bathroom. And so she went, oh, okay. So she tried it and it worked. And then she said to her son, like, wow, wouldn't that be great if we create this little stool, like a toilet stool that wraps around the toilet? And you can, when you're on the toilet, if you want to, you can slide it out and then just put your feet on it and it raises your feet up. And so they're thinking, well, that would be really good. They found a manufacturer who manufactured plastic things, and then they got the mold for it and everything else. It cost them a few $1,000s. And they had samples of it. And they said, but we need a name that's really cool. So it's a toilet stool. You always start with the logic. What is it? It's a toilet stool. But you went, that's not a really good name, toilet stool. So what's another word for toilet? Potty. And you're kind of squatting. Squatty Potty. Let's call it the Squatty Potty. Sales exploded. This is a mom and son with no business experience. And in less than 2 years, they reached $100 million of sales selling this. So about 2 months ago, I was in a hospital getting heart bypass surgery. Not fun. Okay, let me start there. Triple bypass. And so one of the nurses was asking me, like, so what do you do? So I said, oh, I wrote a book called Brain Glue. And I started telling her the story of the mom and son who came up with this thing with the stool. And she starts laughing and she says, I got to tell you this. I'm a nurse. I know that when you're on the toilet, you should raise your feet off the ground. And so I've got a little stool that I raise my feet off the ground with. But when I was in a store and I saw Squatty Potty, and I had to buy it. Even though I had a stool, I had to buy it because I thought the name was so cool. It's like, you know, she already had a stool and yet she bought it. It was $20, I guess. But it's like she bought it because she loved the name. And that's what we want to remember, is if we can come up with a name that's really cool, we have a better chance of, you know, of selling it and making lots of money. Let me give you an example with this guy, Brad Schoenfeld. Okay. And then we can chat some more, but Brad Schoenfeld is one of America's top fitness coaches. And so for a lot of fitness coaches, so Mary Johnson Fitness, okay, she might get the website maryjohnsonfitness.com or maryjohnson.com or whatever else. Not him. His is lookgreatnaked.com. Look great naked. Go to lookgreatnaked.com. It takes you right to Brad Schoenfeld, who's one of America's top fitness coaches, because it grabs your attention, wakes up your brain. And that's what we want is, if we have a product or service, and there are tons of examples, so I can give you tons of examples of this, but there are lots of people who, started with a product or service, and then I work with many of them, and then we had sales, or we struggled with sales, or whatever it was, but we changed the name of it, and then sales skyrocketed. And it's because there are certain things that stick to the brain like glue, which comes back to me, James Bond. People remember, oh, I'm James Bond. I go, okay. I go to a room with like about 80 people. Everyone goes, oh, hi, James. Everybody knows me. I remember what's your name again? What's your name again? But nobody seems to forget my name.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because in like let's say the med spa space, so we have a machine that does vaginal rejuvenation for women, and it helps with urinary incontinence and all this kind of stuff. And I can go over all the logical reasons that you should have it done, and it's a hard sell because it's expensive. But I went to this conference, and this woman also has the same exact machine, and her sales had was exploding, and she was doing all this great stuff. And it's because they created this package around the vaginal rejuvenation, and they called it the perky peach. And everybody wants the perky peach, and then they have peaches all over, and they've got this whole thing going on. And now that you're talking about this stuff, it's not that she's a better marketer. She just has a catchy name,
Well, Eve Ensler created a play for women, and talking about how hard it is being a woman, all the different things you have to go through if you're a woman. And so she could have called the tough life of a woman or something like that. But no, she called it the vagina monologues.
Yeah.
Okay. Vagina monologues exploded in sales. She's off Broadway, but she's making a fortune. She's made a fortune. And even HBO ran a special on it, because it's like, vagina monologues. What's that?
Yeah. Yeah. So
it wakes up the brain.
In terms of, like, let's say med spa, IV hydration, if somebody came to you and was like, well, how do I make because some of these products are super boring. Like they're great and they do stuff, but like, other than the name of the manufacturer, like Morpheus is for skin tightening and stuff. Like there's got to be something else that we can call it to build up. I mean, how would you help somebody walk through the process of naming something?
Well, there are lots of tools. Let me give you this one, okay? And then I'll tell you some of the tools so you can see how they work. But so Carrie Smith was selling fans, really large fans that are used in farms and mostly in barns. If you have a barn, you have horses and cows, you're not going to put air conditioning in it. You're going to have a fan. In big warehouses, you're going to put a fan. And he had really big fans, and he called it HVLS fans, which is high volume, low speed fans. Logical, right? He's sitting and joking with a friend, and he says, the friend is saying, well, but like, what makes them so special? He says, well, these are big ass fans. And his friend starts laughing. Big ass fans? He says, why don't you call them big ass fans instead of that stupid HVLS name that you have? And he goes like, huh. So he ran an ad for big ass fans, and sales exploded. And he went, maybe I should change the name of the company to Big Ass Fans. He did. And sales skyrocketed. In 15 years, he sold, in fact, sales did so well, he started offering other products too. And then he realized these other products are distracting me from my fans. So he stopped selling everything and just focused on fans. In 15 years, he sold the company for $500 million.
Oh my God.
He said, if I was HVLS fans, nobody would have paid that.
Yeah. And it's funny because my son loves them because, and he was like 10 at the time, and he's like, hey, Mom, look, there's a big ass fan. And then, like I can't get mad at him for cursing because that's the name of the fan. So he loved it whenever we saw a big ass fan.
Yeah. Well, and so that uses a trigger word. I work with Warren Buffett's team. And Warren Buffett brought me in when he started buying businesses because I have a behavioral management background. And they wanted to change that. And he has a line, it's only when the tide goes out do you discover who's been swimming naked. What? See, add that word naked and suddenly it wakes up your brain. What? Okay, I don't want to see that, but it's naked as a trigger word. So I say with my book, Brain Glue grabs people's attention, just like a naked man running through your backyard. If you had a naked man running through your backyard, you think that would grab your attention? Hey, what's that? What's that guy doing? What? Okay, that's what our book does. That not with naked, okay, but it does that. But what happens is you want to wake up the brain, because we don't realize this, but people are overwhelmed with knowledge. Okay, not just advertising. We walk around with our cell phones, and I mean, we're so bombarded with knowledge and information that you have to break through. And if you can't break through their brain, you could be talking to somebody and just tell them about your product or service. You think they're listening, but they're kind of going like this, but they're thinking of other things. Hey, is it raining outside? Did I forget to close my car windows? Is my wife pissed off at me, or my husband? Are we going to go through a divorce? If that's happening, and you're chatting with them, you think they're listening, but they're not listening. They're only partially listening. And that's basically how it is. So you need to find a way to wake up the brain, so they go like, what? I have a TV next to my computer. I don't know why, I just have one. And normally it isn't on, but it was on this one day. And I'm doing work on a computer. And then I hear an ad for Blue Emu. It's the anti-arthritis cream. You put it on your joints and stuff like that, if you have pain or generally arthritis. And so they have this guy, Johnny Bench, who's a famous baseball player, who's talking, and I could care less. And he's going, Blue Emu, it works fast and you won't stink. What did he just say? What did he just say? And then from that moment forward, I was like watching the commercial and listening to it to understand, like, what the heck? Woke up the brain. And that's what you want to do, is you want to wake up the brain. There's a woman who has a stay-at-home mom who has a Facebook page that has more than 5 million fans. And she spent zero. A lot of people will spend money on advertising and Facebook or whatever else. She spent zero. She has more than 5 million fans, okay? So what did she come up with? The name for her page. And she said, well, I'm a mommy, so what does mommy needs? A rest. Mommy needs time to herself. Do you understand how hard it is being a mommy sometimes? I know what mommy needs. Mommy needs vodka. She created the page, Mommy Needs Vodka, and she put her post. So I had a friend who must have been one of her fans, and so I saw one of the posts, and I said, oh, this is really a good post. No, this is fun. It's by Mommy Needs Vodka? What? Of course, I clicked on it, went to her page. I loved her post, but a lot of people have good posts, but you don't have people coming to it. But I clicked on it, went to her page. I liked the post, and I became one of the 5 million, more than 5 million fans. But it's because we have to understand this, that we need to wake up the brain. And when we understand tools to wake up the brain, it changes everything. It makes life a lot easier for us to sell. Mm-hmm. So I'll give you an example of one of the tools, but I can explain a whole bunch of the tools. But rhyme is a good example. And let me tell you how powerful these tools are. Okay, let's take rhyme. Do you remember the phrase, if the glove doesn't fit, you have to acquit?
I missed that commercial, but that's catchy.
O.J. Simpson was in a murder trial.
Oh, great. That's right.
Okay. And he sort of showed, he's kind of faked it, how he put the glove on. It was the murderer's glove. And he said, oh, look, it's like really hard to put on everything else. And then Johnny Cochran, his attorney, one of his friends told him this phrase, and he thought, that's great, I'm going to use this. And in the closing argument, in front of the jury, he said, just remember, if the glove doesn't fit, you have to acquit. And so two of the jurors, after the trial, they were asked by an interviewer, with all that evidence against OJ, why'd you find him not guilty? And one of them said it while the other one was nodding her head in agreement. And she said, well, we knew if the gloves don't fit, you must acquit. The glove didn't fit, we had to acquit. If I was an opposing attorney, I would have heard that and I would have said, just remember this, he's an actor. You have to love how he faked the glove. Okay? It's rhyme, but rhyme works. I love Jack and Jill went up the hill, and we remember it, even though we heard the last time we heard it might have been 10, 20 for me, 60 years ago. I'm old, right. What can I say? And yet I remember it like it was yesterday. And it's because rhyme sticks to the brain like glue. And so when we start to understand that there are a lot of, there are a lot of products that rhyme. There's, they're just Squatty Potty rhymes, kind of. Mm-hmm. Famous Amos, 7-Eleven, Reese's Pieces, Jelly Belly, Hooper Scooper. How about lean cuisine, shake and bake? You think it helps that it's a rhyming word? Yeah, because it sticks to the brain like glue. And rhyme is one of the tools that you want to use when you're trying to sell a product. Is, come up with the words, logical first, because most of us are logical. And that's why emotional selling is so hard, because we're logical people, because we solve a problem, we come up with a product or a service or something that we think is going to be really helpful for somebody, because we're logical. But emotion is what sells. I met Zig Ziglar when I was younger. I went to one of his workshops with my wife when he was alive. And he said this thing that changed my life, because I hated selling back then. And now I love selling. I teach it and all that stuff. And he said, selling is nothing more than a transference of passion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you're passionate about something, let's say you saw a movie that you really love. I saw Hidden Figures about the 3 Black women who worked at NASA and became really famous and everything else. And I love that movie. You don't have to teach me how to sell it. It's like, oh, you got to see this. This is such a good movie. And it's like, there are certain things that when we're passionate about it, then nobody has to teach you how to sell. But we have to understand that when we're marketing, we tend to be logical in our marketing. You have the name, you're talking about your product. Well, you have a logical name for your product, okay? Where your competitor has this emotional thing. How would you like to invent a product, a fantastic product, and someone you hate, who's your biggest competitor, steals it from you, and they become massively rich and wealthy, and you starve to death? Wouldn't that be fun? Not. Okay, so let me give you an example of that happening. So Post Cereals competes with Kellogg's. And the head of Post Cereals was telling his second in command, he said, come on, guys, we got to create something that's totally different from cereal, but that people would eat in the morning or maybe for snacks. And it would be really fun. And so they came up with this little cake, a square cake that has strawberry, blueberry, raspberry jam inside it. You put it in your toaster, and when it comes up out of the toaster, it's a nice warm cake. And he decides to call it Country Squares. 3 months before they launched it, he brags to the media, we're launching this new product, Country Squares. It's fantastic. And he showed it. Of course, the head of Kellogg saw that and went, oh my God, guys, come here. I want everybody to look at this. We need to invent that product, okay? That's the product. That is incredible, that product, okay? But we need to come up with a better name for it. And so he came up with 2 brain glue tools. He didn't call it brain glue back then, but he came up with 2 tools. The first one was, let's see, you put it in a toaster and it pops out of the toaster. Pop. It's like sense elevations. The sound, like plop, plop, fizz, fizz. Oh, what a relief it is. Alka-Seltzer. Smells like Teen Spirit in the movie, in this song. It's like, what does Teen Spirit smell like? So he goes, pops out of the toaster. And back then, what's his name? Andy Warhol was a famous artist that everybody knew, and he was a pop artist, pop art. So he went pop art, Pop Tart. Let's call it Pop Tarts. Okay, great name. It was such a good name. Of course, he launched it 1 week before Country Squares were launched.
Oh, no.
Okay, of course, really sad. Their sales exploded. It became the biggest selling product that Kellogg's ever had. They ran out of product. He actually ran apologies in newspapers saying, I am so sorry. Please hang on just for a few days. We didn't realize how many of you would love this so much. Nobody bought Country Squares. They waited for Pop-Tarts to come available. Within a few months, Post stopped selling Country Squares because nobody was buying it. And Pop-Tarts sold so much that last year, I was just looking at the statistic, 3 billion Pop-Tarts got sold.
Oh my God.
They made a fortune because he came up with a better name. And that's why you want to understand it. You want to sell emotionally. You want to come up with a name that triggers emotion. And people go like, whoa, that's cool. I'll go back to, I was talking about, that guy with, what do you call it again? Lookgreatnaked.com. You hear the name and it kind of sticks to the brain. It's like, okay, yeah, that's kind of what I want, I guess. But I mean, it's just, You want to trigger the brain, the emotion part of the brain, because we buy for emotional reasons. In marketing, we have this thing that we say, you want people to know, like, and trust you. And the reason we're saying that is because we know that most people are logical, but know, like, and trust, especially like and trust, are emotions. If you can't stand somebody and they're sitting and talking to you, you're going to listen to them. Okay, fine, whatever. But you're probably not going to buy from them because you don't like them. That's emotion. We buy for emotional reasons. So if we show something, like Squatty Potty, that nurse I was telling you about, she had one and she still bought, she had a little stool, but she bought it because she thought the name was so cool. I got to have a Squatty Potty, but there's something emotional. I saw this guy who had a t-shirt and it said, life sucks and then you die. And I'm like, no, this is life right now. You got to have fun. You got to just, somehow be emotionally, when you're selling something, emotionally transmitting the how you feel so that the other person feels the same way. And so when you do that, if you can trigger emotion, you make a lot more money and you have fun doing it. Yeah, it's just, life is short. Gotta enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you this. So rhyme, I imagine alliteration maybe would be in there.
Yep.
And
Coca-Cola, Best Buy, Bubba, Bed Bath and Beyond, Build-A-Bear, Bubba, TikTok, PayPal, TikTok. My daughter, our youngest daughter, I said, TikTok, that's Chinese social media platform. She said, no, it's not. It's TikTok. I said, yeah, but it's Chinese social media platform. She said, no. Anyway, she did some research and checked and said, oh, yeah, you're right. It is. I didn't know that. It is TikTok. You think they call it TikTok by accident? No, they know that it's alliteration, which is the repetition of sound, sticks to the brain like glue.
Yeah.
And when you start to understand it, you start realizing how many products that are massively successful are use alliteration, repetition of sound. So let's say you're inventing glue, okay, a new type of glue. So one of the tools that you want to use is a metaphors. It's just like what? It's so strong. It's as strong as an elephant. So I call it elephant glue. Well, okay, let me use alliteration, which is glue is good. What's the gorilla? Gorilla glue. Gorilla glue skyrocketed when they came up with the name Gorilla Glue. Okay, and there's another glue called JB Weld. I have a lot of friends in the construction industry. They say JB Weld is 10 times better than Gorilla Glue. But if you go to a store, you're going to see a whole column of Gorilla Glue and maybe one or two JB Weld if you see any.
Right.
Okay. Why? Because the name Gorilla Glue is so cool. People remember it. And it's funny because I was talking to somebody about it, and then I didn't realize right next to my computer, I have a Gorilla Glue package sitting here.
I have Gorilla Glue too.
Yeah, exactly. It's just because it sticks to the brain, and you go, okay, well, I have to choose something. Oh, I think it's Gorilla Glue. That's cool. Okay. It grabs your attention and you end up buying it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's amazing. So, I mean, you've built like an empire off this idea of brain glue, right?
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. In fact, I have to say this. The first time I made over $1 million, I freaked out. I called my wife because we were helping companies, but we also were selling it ourselves. So we started selling stuff ourselves. So we started selling stuff online. And then when we changed the name of something that we were selling, I remember I called my wife and said, hey, Pam, American Express just charged our credit card $1,000. And she said, well, turn it off. I said, no, wait, we just made 10,000, 11,000, 12,000. I'll call you right back. When I called her back, I said, look how much money we made. She said, well, spend more. My wife, what can I say? But it's just, I started getting scared. I started thinking, am I breaking the law? Did I do something really? Why am I making so much money? It's just freaky. I was a consultant and I'm selling stuff online. I'm suddenly making more money online than I was working as a consultant. But after a while, I got used to it. It's like, yeah, come on, buy my products, But I started working with my clients and doing the same thing. And I had these 3 guys who had a construction company who after 10 years had $2 million of sales. Not bad, right? 2 million? Ha ha. I'm saying that, I don't mean it, but in 1 year, I took them from 2 to 10 million in sales. And then they reached 32 million in sales 2 years later by applying brain glue. And it's because, we recognize, I said, of all the different types of people you're doing construction for, if you had to pick one person, who would you pick? And they said, well, or one type of person. And they said, well, I'm not sure. And I said, we're not sure we want to say no to anybody. So I understand that, but we're playing a game. Let's pick, somebody that you love to sell to. And they said, well, we actually work for an insurance company. We did a couple of their clients who had fires. And so it's called fire restoration for insurance companies. I said, oh, okay. So why don't we, so I said first, so if their client has a fire, what's the trigger word that goes off in their brain? And they're going, oh, I don't know. I said, think about it. If they have a fire, what's the trigger word that goes off in their brain? And one of them says, fire? I said, yeah, well, that's the word that comes up. Okay. Why don't we call ourselves the fire extinguisher for insurance companies? We're your fire extinguisher. We got the website, firex.com. And so I remember I went with them to the first prospect, and they were talking, and they were embarrassed, so they didn't say fire extinguisher. But of course, I went forward and I said, okay, look, we're the fire extinguisher for you, for your clients. Every time you get a client that has a fire, call us. We're your fire extinguisher. We'll fix the building for you. He started laughing, the prospect. We got in the car. We went back to their office, and the receptionist that they had said, hey, you just got a call from the guy you just saw. He was laughing, and he's got a client for you already. It was just because of this. Their sales went from 2 to 10 million in sales in 1 year, and then to 32 million 2 years later, just by focusing on a narrower target of the type of client, and then having this cool thing that they call themselves.
Wow.
And it was fun and funny, but it worked. And it just, it started freaking me out. I was like, wow, if I figured this thing out that nobody else has figured out. That's why I love saying there are 3 other tools. Hopefully you'll buy the book. Okay, go to yesbrainglue.com and check out the book, because I think you'll really like it. But there are 3 tools that everyone who's listening can apply. And the first one is a metaphor. And you complete this phrase, my product or service is just like ... And be as crazy as possible. I'll give you an example. Paul Tran created an electric razor for man's private areas. I don't want to get too much into this, but okay. So he's thinking, like, what am I going to call this? I want to come up with a name that people know what it is, but I don't want to offend people.
Mm-hmm.
So an electric razor, what do I call it? It's like a lawnmower. What did I call it? The lawnmower. Okay. And he actually changed the name of his company to Manscaped. We're going to landscape a man with a lawnmower. Sales exploded. Okay. I was in Bed Bath & Beyond, or one of the stores with my wife, and they had a poster. It's a white poster, and it said the lawnmower with an arrow pointing down to their electric razor. And underneath that, it had a description. And there are 2 guys who were reading this description because they were hooked by a lawnmower. And so I walked up to it also. I went, the lawnmower? I started reading the text on it. It got my attention. I didn't buy one. If I bought one, I wouldn't share it with my friends. So let's start there, okay? But if I could see calling my friend and saying, hey, Joe, guess what I just bought? What? The lawnmower. Oh, why? You have to mow your lawn? No, it's for shaving man's private areas. I can see him laughing and telling his wife, hey, Mary, come here. James, guess what James just bought? What? The lawnmower. Why? He has to mow his lawn? No, it's shaving his private areas. And then it takes off like viral. You start telling your friends, guess what James just bought, And so sales exploded. So the first thing you want to start with is a metaphor. That's the best one. And complete the phrase, my product or service is just like, and then be as crazy as possible. Start with the craziest idea. My book is like a naked man running through your backyard. Okay? I mean, just be as crazy as possible. You may actually use the crazy one, but if not, at least it'll give you some ideas. Second thing you use is rhyme. Take at least 3 of the words that relate to your product or service. And then you can use ChatGPT or AI, artificial intelligence, and do it also. Ask for all the words that rhyme with it. And once you get all the words that rhyme with it, then I had for brain glue, I would say pitch. It helps with your pitch. It helps you get rich. Oh, switch your pitch if you want to get rich. There you go. Okay. I got another one. I said I want to be more advanced. So I said it helps build passion. It's desire. What's another word for passion? Is desire. Oh, buyer, desire. Okay. Brain glue helps you light the fire of desire in your buyer. Does that make sense? And it resonates more than if I said, oh yeah, it really works. It sticks. Okay. And so So the first thing is come up with a metaphor. Second one is come up with words that rhyme. Pick at least 3 words that relate to your product or service, and then find as many words as possible that rhyme with it and see if you can connect that together. Then the third one is alliteration, like glue. What rhymes with what sound has the same sound as glue? Best Buy, PayPal. It's not a coincidence. They chose alliteration, a repetition of sound, because it sticks to the brain. It resonates. Build-A-Bear. We were with my grandkids, and we want to go to Build-A-Bear. They know it. They're like 4 and 6 years old, and they know Build-A-Bear. You can't, they've got it memorized. I want to go to Build-A-Bear. And it's because it doesn't matter if you're a child or an adult, certain things like this stick to the brain like glue. And the good news is with brain glue, it actually has 14 different ones like these. And when you start to see it, this is one of the things that people tell me. When they start going through brain glue, they start recognizing, oh, that's why they're so famous. That's why they're so successful, blah, 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 because you start recognizing it. And I'll go back to, Warren Buffett. He said, only when the tide goes out, do you discover who's been swimming naked. Naked is a trigger word,
Mm-hmm.
It's like dirty. Would you use the word dirty if you're describing a product? And yet there's famous movies like Dirty Dancing, Dirty Harry, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. They're famous because they use a trigger word. You go, what? What? It goes back to, Blue Emu works fast and you won't stink. What? But you want to do that with your product because it gives you an edge. Pop-Tarts, it gives you an edge because people know what Pop-Tarts is. It sounds really cool. I want that because it triggers the brain. There are certain things that are easy for the brain to recognize. When you understand that and you can use those tools, then you have a much better chance of making a fortune. And I have to tell you, I'm floored by how many people suddenly start making a lot more money. I mean, you have the example with the product you were talking about, that this competitor suddenly has a better name and it takes off like crazy. And we want to learn this is, if we have something, if we're offering something that we know is going to be really good for somebody, we want to have a name that triggers enough of their brain so they're actually going to want to buy it. And I'll go back to John Gray, men, women, and relationships. It tortured him because he knew this was good, but it was only helping a small number of people and he wasn't making that much money. But he went to, he made a fortune when he came up with a better name. That's what we want to remember that also. And you often only have to do it once in your life and suddenly, it takes off and you don't have to do it like every day. You just come up with one and have fun selling it.
And for like companies that have multiple products, I mean, you could just do this for one product and watch those sales take off.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll go back to, Big Ass Fans. He started adding all these other products and they went like, wait a second, I'm making so much from this. Let me just focus on the fans. He has a cool logo, by the way, Big Ass Fans. He has a donkey with his butt facing you and his head is off in a distance, turned looking at you, because he wanted an ass as a donkey. So he didn't want to totally offend people, and the butt of an ass. So look at the butt of a donkey. What can I say?
Yeah.
You don't want to swear if you don't have to, but hey, vagina monologues took off. So what can I say?
Oh gosh, James, I love all of this. This is so great. I've already purchased your book. So while we were talking,
Thank you.
Very excited for this to come in. But where can people find this book and learn more about you and how to get in touch with you?
Well, it's available on Amazon. And it's in all types. You've got audiobook, you've got the physical books and stuff like that. But if you go to yesbrainglue.com, then that helps you because it's got lots of information on brain glue. It's also got lots of testimonials, but it's got lots of information on brain glue too. And I think that, hopefully you'll buy the book, but even if you don't, if you click on the link for Amazon, it actually has a table of contents and you'll see a lot of the tools that are there too. But I think, people say, and that's one thing that's fun about it is it isn't just about learning a tool, but getting to apply it. And so I give you lots of cool examples and I give you a simple exercise to make it easy for you to come up with it yourself. And so it makes it a lot of fun. But yesbrainglue.com is an easy way to find it.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing all this with us today.
Oh, Catie, thank you so much for I love your podcast. You rock.
Thank you.